All right, everyone, let's get started. I would like to welcome you to Hunt Scanlon Media's Large Language Models and Private Equity, Strengths and Limitations. My name is Josh Gardner. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of AiFlow. We're a leading AI-native CRM provider for private equity, executive search, and large endowments. I'll let my co-founder, Nick Manse, introduce himself as well. Go ahead, Nick.
Hi, everyone. Hello from San Francisco. My name is Nick, co-founder and CTO. Happy to be here with you today. Back to you, Josh.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick. All right, let's dive in here. Okay, so we're talking about large language models, and I think the one that's most familiar to everyone is probably ChatGPT. Out of curiosity, how many of you have used ChatGPT in the past week? Feel free to drop your answer in the chat. I'll give everyone a few seconds here. Okay. All right, I want to give you an interesting statistic about ChatGPT usage. It looks like we have many users here. ChatGPT has 100 million weekly users. Right? When I say 100 million weekly users, I think it's difficult to understand exactly what that means or what kind of scale we're talking about here. Here's a graph showing the road to 100 million weekly users for various well-known platforms. It took ChatGPT only 2 months to get to 100 million weekly users. Compare this to 9 months for TikTok, 1.5 years for YouTube, 4.5 years for Facebook, and 18 years for Netflix. The rate of widespread adoption of ChatGPT has been absolutely groundbreaking. For a technology that is so novel and revolutionary, to be adopted by the public and the business world this rapidly is completely unprecedented. In a way, it's truly revolutionary. Since this is a webinar on large language models, I think it's appropriate that I define what a large language model is before we go any further. I like to say that large language models are essentially extremely large autocomplete programs. Now that sounds kind of odd, right? You have autocomplete on your phone as you type or as you're doing Google search, and it certainly doesn't feel human or intelligent as the same way that GPT does. ChatGPT can mimic the way that people write in a way that's pretty uncanny. So how does it do that? Well, in essence, it has read almost everything written on the internet. Every kind of book, article, website, and more. It has read such an unfathomable amount of text that it can mimic the way that people write. Now, this is a bit of an odd slide. I'm saying ChatGPT is Coca-Cola. What do I mean by that? Well, Coca-Cola isn't the only brand of cola. It might be the first one that comes to mind when I say cola, but there's also Pepsi, Mr. Pibb, and RC Cola out there. The largest competitor of ChatGPT is a company called Anthropic. I like to say that they're the Pepsi of the large language model world. There's a bit of a newcomer called Mistral AI, who I like to describe as the Mr. Pibb of the large language model world. Also, I suspect this may be the only time Mr. Pibb is discussed in a webinar for private equity professionals. So, somewhat fun. Lastly, I like to say that Cohere is the RC Cola of the large language model world. Certainly very popular in a lot of business use cases. It's well known within its niche, even though it isn't as big as, let's say, the Pepsi or the Coke of the large language model space. A lot of these companies are so early and they're privately held, so we don't have much information about their revenue. We do have a lot of information, though, about their equity funding. OpenAI has received $14 billion in funding from various venture capitalists and large organizations such as Microsoft, which put in a massive investment. Their second largest competitor, Anthropic, isn't even close, right? The funding for Anthropic is about an order of magnitude lower than the funding for OpenAI. OpenAI's lead is absolutely massive. But right now, there are many, many large language model companies with more cropping up month by month. VCs are pouring billions of dollars into the large language model space, and many believe that right now it's anyone's game. Next, I want to discuss something called fine-tuning. So I'm showing you a variety of flavors of Coca-Cola. As you remember in my analogy, I was saying that ChatGPT is the Coca-Cola of the large language model world. Very much like Coca-Cola, there are many flavors of ChatGPT. And to take it even further, with ChatGPT, you can make your own flavors. So what exactly do I mean by that? There are many job functions at most companies, right? You have people in HR, people in marketing. In the private equity world, you'll have portfolio ops and deal team. And with fine tuning, you can modify ChatGPT such that it writes text that is more similar to what you need for each role or use case. So what does this mean in the business world, and what does this mean for your bottom line? I'll give you an example from the talent space. Recent studies have shown that job descriptions written with ChatGPT get relatively low conversion rates, about 5 to 10%, compared to job descriptions written by the top billers in the recruiting world, which can often get conversion rates closer to 50%. Now, here's what's interesting. If you take the job descriptions written by top recruiters and you use them to fine-tune ChatGPT, suddenly your fine-tuned version of ChatGPT can write job descriptions that will get conversion rates that are also around 50%. And we see similar things playing out across use cases, right? There are fine-tuned models that are very helpful for doing due diligence on contracts. There are other ones that are very helpful for putting together things like investment memos, so on and so forth. So fine-tuning allows you to really harness the full power of these large language models. So at a high level, not only are there different brands of large language model, within each brand, you can fine-tune them to get them to be better at your particular use cases. Next up, I want to address something that I think is, a very big trend in society right now. There's a lot of anxiety over whether AI is going to take people's jobs. So will AI take your job? Well, before I start, I want to discuss a little bit of how we see AI in popular culture. Many times we think of scary AIs such as the Terminator, or we'll think about lovable and endearing AIs with human qualities like Mr. Data from Star Trek. I apologize, I'm a little bit of a science fiction nerd. I am an engineer, I suppose it comes with the territory. Even though we think of these superhuman AIs, they really are superhuman. That's sort of part of the appeal of the Terminator or Mr. Data or these various AIs in popular culture. As I said earlier, large language models are really much closer to autocomplete. And autocomplete has a tendency to do a lot of goofy and at times imperfect things. So at this stage, I don't think people are in danger of losing their jobs, at least not in very high touch or elite professions. Notably, as an engineer, I'm a little bit nervous because large language models are very, very good at writing code. Thankfully for me, now I'm in a managerial role, but certainly junior engineers and line level engineers, there is a little bit to fear here maybe going forward. That said, I believe for professionals in the private equity space and in related industries like executive search, the threat isn't nearly as imminent or severe. Your jobs rely predominantly on building trust with other people. Deal makers and talent professionals are constantly connecting with people and working to gain their trust. Even if artificial intelligence begins to approach human levels or even exceeds human levels of intelligence, I think it's always going to struggle with building trust. So if you're a professional who relies predominantly on building trust for making money, I think you'll be safe for a while, if not indefinitely. I want to discuss a few use cases that I think are very widespread within private equity and within the talent space. A few of the big ones I've seen, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are using large language models to do things like writing job descriptions. We're also seeing it used heavily for performing due diligence on contracts. We're seeing it used very heavily for writing contracts, or at least drafts of contracts. We're seeing it used for things like writing drafts of investment memos. In general, we're seeing a lot of writing, which makes sense because that's what large language models are exceptionally good at. However, there are some much less obvious use cases. These use cases are part of what I consider to be the next wave of large language model adoption in the business world. The next wave isn't just a wave. It isn't just any wave. It's going to be a tsunami, right? I call it the data tsunami. There is going to be more data than has ever been accessible before in the history of the business world. We are talking an absolute deluge of data. And this is going to be driven largely by the emergence of large language models. Let me explain exactly how this technology is going to drive this tsunami of data. This is a bit of an odd image to show. I'm showing you a tag. So why am I showing you a tag? Large language models are exceptionally good at tagging unstructured data like resumes, contracts, websites, customer reviews, so on and so forth. What do I mean by tagging the data? I mean taking this unstructured data and labeling it in ways that you can think of as being like well-formatted Excel files. You can take unstructured text and map it into a very neat and tidy Excel spreadsheet that labels different things like, for example, what is the sentiment of this text, right? Is it generally positive, negative? What are some keywords from the text? Maybe if you're looking at a resume, what industries has this person worked in? Right? If you're looking at a company, you could tag who are their competitors. Remember, the large language models, they've read essentially the entire internet. If you show them a company, they're able to tell you what industries it's in and who the competitors are. And the list of applications of this, they go on and on. So that's the first technology, tagging. Let's talk about the second technology. I know many of you are looking at this graphic right now and you're having awful flashbacks to high school math class. Don't worry, I'm also having some nasty flashbacks to my time in engineering school. But don't worry, the math isn't important here. Let me explain what this is and how this affects the business world. In the process of creating large language models, scientists had to create a related technology called an embedding. What an embedding does is it takes words and phrases and represents them in a conceptual way that the computer can reason about. Let's say, for example, a user types kitten into a search bar. The computer because of embeddings, is able to know that a kitten is similar to a cat, and that it's more similar to a cat than it is to a dog, and that it's more similar to a dog than it is to a wolf. And also that a kitten has absolutely nothing to do with an apple or a banana. Right? This is an extremely powerful technology. If you think about the way you typically search things in various databases, say your CRM or searching on LinkedIn or even sometimes searching online, you often have to fiddle with keywords. Right? I know many people in the talent space have to become experts in doing these advanced Boolean searches where they're writing out many keywords and doing even complex logic on them with ands and ors. Now you can just type in a simple word or phrase and get everything that's conceptually related back in that search. This is pretty revolutionary, especially when you combine it with that power of data tagging, where suddenly you have more data than ever before. Not only do you have more and better tagged data than you ever did in the past, but now you're able to search it in a way that is much, much better and easier. So it's more data and it's more searchable data. So what exactly does this mean for your business? What does it mean for your bottom line? I'm going to walk you through a case study about a client that we recently worked with. Our client is a growth equity firm with a software focus. The firm's founder, Stephen, built the firm from $0 to $10 billion in assets under management. Over time, the firm has scaled from 1 to 100 people. And as the firm has scaled, their network has scaled with it. I'd like to talk about what I call the designated CRM warrior. As the network has scaled, we see more and more CRM warriors. Here you see poor Greg from HR fighting with sort of the dinosaur and fossil that is Salesforce. Unfortunately, at Stephen's firm, Greg isn't the only CRM warrior. In reality, almost everyone at the firm has become a CRM warrior. Their network is absolutely critical to everything that the firm does. Their value, their ability to source deals, to do things on behalf of portfolio companies, even to find new limited partners, all comes down to leveraging their network effectively. But the problem is that their CRM is filled with extremely stale and outdated data that is poorly tagged. In many cases, they have contacts that are 5 or 6 years old and who haven't been updated in the past 5 to 6 years, right? In many cases, the contacts were entered and then never updated. In those 5 or 6 years, the contacts have often switched jobs 2 or 3 times. Many cases, they've switched companies, they've switched entire industries even, right? So this data becomes almost useless if you need to find someone for a very quick introduction at a particular company or someone who's very active in a particular industry, right? And that's a huge problem. So that's the first issue. The data is stale. The second is even the data that's fresh, right? Like the recently logged contacts, they're very poorly tagged. So we might know a person's company and their job title, but we haven't tagged their industries and we haven't tagged keywords that are important surrounding this person. So oftentimes, if we're searching for people in a particular industry, or maybe at comparable companies to a company we're evaluating, we can't find the people we need quickly. And people like Greg have to wade through the Salesforce database, looking contact by contact, and fiddling with keywords until they can find the right people, if they can even find them. In the age of large language models, this pain is completely unnecessary. With AiFlow's technology, we've taken Salesforce from this to this. Now for Greg from HR and for the rest of the firm, dealing with Salesforce is like dealing with a cute little puppy dog. So let me show you what this looks like. I'll give you a brief demo here. Give me a moment. to figure out, having a few technical difficulties with my getting out of my slide deck here. Here we go. All right, let me hide the meeting controls. Okay, here we go. So this isn't the firm's database. We're under NDA with them, and obviously I can't share their database. All right, so this is our database. We have some dummy data here. And I'd like to demonstrate to you some of the functionalities that we were able to implement for the firm that have really changed the way that they search their network. Right here, we have a page displaying all of the companies that we have contacts at. Right, what's interesting about this is that we can search through these companies semantically. So let's say, for example, we're looking for comparable companies. Since I've been ripping on Salesforce, I think maybe it's appropriate I search for Salesforce. There we go. Okay. So we get Salesforce, right? That's an obvious one, and one that we would get with keyword match anyway. But we get comparables like Insight Squared, HubSpot, Oracle, SAP, so on and so forth, right? In general, we're getting lots of tools that are in the sales enablement and database spaces. Moreover, for all of these companies, we have them tagged in detail. We know their industries. We know their competitors. We know alternative names for the companies, right? These are things that have been made easy to implement by large language models. Additionally, we have lots of very fresh and up-to-date data that we've gotten from various third-party data vendors and through our own scraping and large language model technologies. All right, we have all of the filters that would be available on LinkedIn and more. Notably, if I click into a company, we have lots of data on the company from third-party vendors like Crunchbase, for example. We have things like fortune rank, number of employees, revenue, market cap. You can see which contacts work at the companies. You can even click into them. We know which companies they've recently acquired, right? We know their funding. All right, we have lots and lots of data, and it's all fresh, right? You can see our data has been updated within the past few days here. All right, we've made it very easy for the firm to quickly run updates on their data to avoid that issue of having stale records. Let me give you another example. Let's say instead of looking for comparables, we're looking for all of the companies in a particular vertical. Let's search for financial services. Here we go. We have a lot of the typical suspects here: Wells Fargo, First Republic, Santander, Morgan Stanley, and the list goes on. All pretty much spot on. So once again, this isn't by keywords. This is being done conceptually, right? In a way, the large language model and the embeddings know which companies are in financial services. All right, so we're able to get this excellent, easy to use search. I'll give you another example directly on contacts. Here you can see we have a table of contacts, including all of their job experiences. Let's say I would like to find people who have worked in the biotech sector. It's very simple. I type in biotech. Here we go. We get some obvious biotech companies like Ginkgo Bioworks, AO Biome, a company called Life Technologies. Let's click into some companies that maybe aren't so obviously biotech based on the name. I believe this one is Illumina. Right, let's see here if this is biotech. Okay, I'm seeing some biotech keywords: genetic variation in function, DNA, RNA, eyeballing it. Yes, this does look like a biotech company. Notably, though, I don't see biotech mentioned anywhere in the profile directly. There's no biotech, no mention of biotechnology, nothing like that in this profile. What's happening is that because of the AI, we're able to identify this company as biotech just due to the presence of words like DNA. In the embeddings, essentially, we're able to detect that semantically similar to the concept of biotech. This is extremely powerful when you're trying to find contacts with experience in a particular vertical. All right, let me get back to my slide deck here. Hey, here we are. Okay. So Stephen, the founder of the firm, he always likes to say that your network is your net worth, and that he believes this is just as true for companies as it is for individuals. By better leveraging Stephen's network and the firm's network, we've been able to increase their assets under management. Stephen and his investor relations team have been able to leverage their network for more intros to potential limited partners. Additionally, using our conceptual search features combined with other features such as our geographic search feature, it's pretty cool. You can set a location and a radius around it. It will find everyone within that radius using technology similar to GPS. He's been able to put on special events. For example, he recently put on a networking event for biotech executives in the Boston area. Through these networking events, he's been able to get intros to LPs and add value for high net worth individuals who come to these networking events. This has enabled Stephen to close more LPs, increasing his AUM. And with management fees of 2%, this is substantial for Stephen's bottom line. Moreover, his portfolio ops team has seen major value adds. The number of customer intros and advisor intros has gone up dramatically. Right? The team has had a much easier time finding relevant contacts in their network who can advise their portfolio companies, be customers for them, or introduce them to people who can. At the same time, the talent professionals on the portfolio ops team have seen a rapid decrease in the time to fill critical roles, as it's been much easier to leverage their network for referrals. Last but not least, the deal team has had a much easier time sourcing deals through their network. Additionally, they've had an easier time performing due diligence by finding experts in the network who can help. They've had an easier time persuading investment targets to do deals with them because they're able to show them potential customers and advisors who the firm can offer to them. All of this together means that there's higher deal flow. The firm is seeing higher quality deals, and they're able to close them much faster than ever before. Taken together, these things drive a major increase in returns in addition to AUM. This has a massive impact on the firm's bottom line. Right now, a tsunami is coming. Some firms are going to ride the tsunami. They're going to surf the tsunami. Other firms are going to get soaked. And unfortunately, some firms are going to drown. Luckily for everyone in attendance today, I happen to know some people who make excellent surfboards. Thank you. All right, I'll open the floor for Q&A. All right, I believe there should be a Q&A button at the bottom of everyone's screens. Feel free to go ahead and ask any questions you may have. Yeah, notably as well, I'm glad to connect with people after the webinar, especially those of you based in New York City. My office is right near Rockefeller Center. I'm based out of 49th and Madison. So anyone in Midtown or nearby, I'd be glad to meet and chat. Let's see here. Let's see, okay. So please share that use case again. How is the firm using a person's network to start a broader search? Okay. Henry Fernandez, do you have your own product or do you only do custom-based work for clients? Okay. So first off, we do have our own product, right? Like what I've shown you, that is our product. right? We've built this and we sell it as a SaaS product, right? For anyone who would like to try it. So responding to Henry's question. All right, for Eric's question, I can go back and share the use case here. So he's saying, how is the firm using a person's network to start a broader search? Okay, let me share my screen again and I'll show you the demo app and walk you through it. Okay, here we go. Okay. So in essence, the way you would go about this is, let's say at a very high level, you know what sort of people you're looking for, right? In terms of vertical or company. Right. So let's even say, I don't know, I keep ripping on Salesforce. So let's do something related to maybe Salesforce here. See if we have any contacts at other sales enablement companies. Give me a moment. Takes a little bit for the AI to run. Okay, we have a lot of Salesforce people here. See some people who worked at Oracle. You scroll through. So essentially, you could even just type in the company and we'll show you people who've worked for close comparables. That would be the way I would start, right? I would just type in the name of the company you're recruiting on behalf of, and it would just come up with people who've worked at similar places. That'd be an easy way of doing it. Another tool that you could use, we don't have many people on this demo account, but let me show you, we have job title search that does it semantically, right? So I am a CTO, right? So let's say you're looking to fill a role that's a CTO somewhere. So I can type in CTO on the job title search. Okay, let's see. Click the search button. There we go. Okay, a little bit of a lag running the AI. Because we're able to search conceptually, you'll get people who aren't just CTOs, you'll get closely related roles, like, for example, VP of engineering, senior director of engineering, right? Let's see, global chief technology officer. So, things where maybe the keywords aren't an exact match for CTO, but where they're closely related semantically. All right. So the idea here is, instead of having to play around with Boolean search strings, you just kind of type in broadly what you're looking for, and the system knows to find people who are conceptually similar, right? You can combine this with a variety of other filters that we have here. Right, you can do like company industry. You can say, I want people who are competitors of a particular company, people with certain expertise, let's say, for example, maybe a particular state you want people in. Even geography, there's really a lot of ways you could start your search here. A lot of flexibility on it. Let's see. Give me a moment. Okay. What data sources is this information coming from to make sure it's accurate? Or does that data come from what a client provides? So we integrate with your Salesforce, actually, or other databases. So right now, this is dummy data, right? We can't use the client's data for the actual demo here. Right, we can't be sharing their data. But we'll integrate with your database. So we'll upload all the data you have in your Salesforce, but we take it a step further, where we're using external data vendors like Equilar, Nubella, People Data Labs, right? These are some of the bigger people data vendors out there. And we'll essentially take more up-to-date information off of them. We'll check your Salesforce records and see if we need to add additional information. Right? We'll do that both on our own platform and in your Salesforce as well. Let's see here. Okay. Veronica's question, how can this be applied to qualitative and quantitative data analysis? Okay. Right now, we don't have a lot of analytics in our platform in particular, although that is coming later on. But I'll give you an example that we've seen being used in the industry. A lot of PE firms are interested in looking at customer reviews for the products of companies that are investment targets, right? So I've seen people taking just massive volumes of reviews And you can go through and kind of tag each one. Like, was this positive? Was this negative? And here's what's interesting. And you really couldn't do this before. You can tag it on specific fields. Like you can say, like, did this review discuss, let's say we're comparing Uber and DoorDash, right? Uber Eats and DoorDash or something, right? Even though these are publicly traded, a PE firm's probably not looking at them. You could look at the reviews and say, okay, does this mention food quality is one example. Another one, like, does this review mention delivery time or delivery speed? Maybe does the review mention cost, right? So you can look at these various facets. And essentially, using the large language model, you have labels for whether or not they were discussed. And then you can also label if they were discussed, were they discussed in a positive way or in a negative way, right? You can take this data in Excel and you can generate some really interesting graphics off of it. They're often quite telling. So it's extremely useful for quantitative data analysis as well as for qualitative. To give you another example, let's say we take all of those customer reviews. Using that conceptual search technology I was talking about, you can actually search over those reviews to find ones that discuss a particular thing of interest to you, right? So let's say you wanted to see, is any review threatening to take legal action against the company, right? You could search for sue or lawsuit or something, see if anyone's making threats in the reviews, right? There are various searches you could do on these. All right, let's see, is there an ability to override the data? For example, company revenue estimates. Right now, we do have the ability to edit a lot of data here, right? Trying to think of some interesting fields to show. Nick, do you have any fields that you think would be interesting to edit? Nick?
Yeah. I mean, you can, we actually haven't yet built the ability to edit revenue yet, but you can edit basically any other field here. So
Yeah, I think it's because revenue is generally being pulled directly from Crunchbase. So we could enable that though. I think you can edit most other fields. Wait a minute, let me see. Give me a second. Okay, Ziggy. Okay, yeah. Here we go. Yeah, you can edit your records pretty easily, right? Like if I wanted to change this guy's first name, primary company, if I wanted to edit any of his job experiences here, I can go in and do that. Right? So most of the data is very editable. Right? There's a few things so far that aren't editable, but overwhelmingly you can edit the data. Let's see. Override. You go down here. All right. Joy's question, if PE firms use technology like this to identify limited partners, perform DD, and find talent for portcos, how does this change what PE firms are looking for from the executive search and talent advisory partners? Okay. I would say, which I think Joy even pointed out here, that becomes more imperative for people to be strategic talent problem solvers, right? A more holistic. It's exactly that. I think it comes down more to relationship building. Like if we're making sourcing much easier, then in essence, there's a lot of still a lot of, I'd call it almost sales-like functionality where, the talent professional has to persuade the executive that's worth jumping into this role or that they should be interested in this role. They really need to build trust with them. So I think the value that talent professionals will really be driving here, and that the AI, I think, will never be able to replace, quite frankly. If it can replace this, I think society has bigger problems, right? Is that ability to build trust, right? So if you're really good in executive search and you have an excellent network, you have lots of executives who know and trust you, right? When you're asking someone to switch jobs or to step into a new role, I think that's very scary for a lot of people. And it really takes a lot of persuasion from a person that they trust, right? So I think talent professionals, by having, just a lot of people in their network who really trust them, And by being very talented at persuasion, I think they can still add a lot of value. I think within the human capital industry, the only people who really this kind of tech might endanger, it's largely going to be sourcers. So it's kind of much lower level people or even outsourced, BPO firms or recruitment process outsourcing firms. So I do think it's going to really upend a lot of the staffing industry, maybe, but I think, very high touch executive search professionals, it relies so much on trust building and so much on sales in a sense, that you're not really at risk, at least not in my opinion. Okay, lastly, it looks like we have a question from Arthur. Has the AI been used in Africa? If so, which countries? So far, our product in particular hasn't been used in Africa. We don't have any African clients yet. However, I believe large language models are already being used pretty extensively in Africa. Me and Nick have a lot of friends in the technology world running other tech companies, and many of them are African tech founders. I think Nigeria right now is actually a really big hub. I know a lot of tech founders in Nigeria, and many of them are leveraging AI. All right, so we're not currently, in Africa. We don't have a presence there, but we certainly have friends who do, and who are using this technology there. Okay, let me see here. I think that's all I see in Q&A. Let me check the chat here. Okay, LDA sentiment. Let me see here. And emotional models. So right now we're not using, so these are a little bit more technical here. I'm assuming when Veronica says LDA, she means latent Dirichlet, God, I'm forgetting the last term. Is it latent Dirichlet application? I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since statistical machine learning. Yes, allocation. Okay, I did remember. It's, God, 6 years of engineering school studying AI, and I forgot allocation at the end. But yes, latent Dirichlet allocation. No, we're not for what we're doing in particular, but yeah, overwhelmingly, we are using large language models. In our case, largely those provided by OpenAI, models similar to ChatGPT. Right. In our case, we don't really have much sentiment analysis in our platform. The use case I was giving earlier with, let's say comparing the sentiments of reviews for Uber Eats versus DoorDash, people there, they're certainly using sentiment and emotional models, right? Let me see here. Okay. Okay. Did that answer the question well? Okay, excellent. Okay, yeah, thanks, Veronica. Okay, let's see. Anyone else have questions here? Right, any takers? Okay, here's Walker's letting me know for PE recruiting. Okay, how can you contact me? Probably best is by email, right? Let's see here. Is there a way for me to type my email and send it out to everyone? I'll type it here. It says to host and panelist. I don't know if that will work, but I'll give everyone here my email. Josh@aiflow.solutions. Here we go. So that's to Veronica. And then there's a question Walker sent over earlier for PE recruiting in particular. Oop. Let's see, I lost it here. Let me scroll down. Give me a moment. For PE recruiting in particular, there is a ton of historical data that comes into play, such as experience with M&A, revenue growth rates, international experience, and successful exits. Is the AI able to track historical information such as that, or just current information? Yes, it can absolutely track historical information. And that's what's so cool about this, right? So you can take notes that are in your CRM, right? Or even information we're pulling from the internet, from let's say like a website or even a blog post somewhere. And you can have the large language model extract specific things of interest, right? So the client is having us, so it's fascinating you mentioned this because the client is actually having us do this right now. We're implementing functionality where it can look at the notes and it's going to say, okay, like what revenue growth rate has this contact achieved, right? If it's mentioned in the notes or if we're able to find it online, right? And we're gonna add that label on the profile. You can find it directly. We're tagging things like M&A experience and successful exits as well, right? So it's funny you mentioned that. This is one of the things exactly that we're doing. And yes, we can get that historical information, right? Yeah, we can get that. Okay, did that answer that question well? Okay, let's see here. All right, anyone else? Any other takers here? All right, going once, going twice. Okay, let's see. Okay, we don't have any other takers here. I want to close out here by thanking everyone for coming. And also by saying, I really love talking about this stuff and sharing it with people. Even beyond our own product and the things that we've built, I find large language models really exciting. Even though I'm an engineer, I'm a very talkative engineer. So I love meeting new people and I love helping people out, whether it be with large language models or other things. So for anyone here, I'm always glad to meet over Zoom, to discuss ways you can use large language models to improve your business or to just help you with general information about large language models. For people based in New York City, I'll, sort of reiterate again, I'm based in Midtown. I saw a question of, yes, a recording will be available afterwards. Someone had asked if the recording will be made available. Yes, it will. Yeah, for those of you based in New York, our office, once again, right near Rockefeller Center, very central in Midtown. I love meeting people in person, whether it's for coffee or to drop in and visit you in your office. So feel free to reach out to me. All right, I'd love to be a resource. All right, with that, I think we can wrap up the webinar here. Thank you all for coming.